Today's video is gonna be really nerdy. We're gonna take an in-depth look at a super nice keyboard and synth stand, the Jaspers. I've had one here for a while in the studio. I'm super happy with it. There are some negatives. We're gonna get to those later in the video. We're gonna go over how it's assembled, some ergonomic benefits, and also take a look at the different types of stands there are, because it's a little bit confusing. There's a lot to choose from. So welcome to this buyer's guide, this review of the Jaspers synth stand. And this video is made in collaboration with Tollman, who sent over a stand. So if you want to go and buy a Jaspers stand, check my links in the description. Those are affiliate links, so I get a little kickback if you use them. So this is what my Jaspers setup looks like right now. It's a bit of a work in progress. I haven't figured out exactly how I want everything. It's currently used to house some of my favorite synths, and these smaller holders down here are supposed to be for effects or maybe Digitact, Octatrack or something like that. Because I can slide the entire row here back, it becomes pretty ergonomic above the matriarch. So it's pretty nice. So it's definitely still a work in progress. I just have some stuff here that I use on a more daily basis. One reason why I think that the Jaspers are so good is because they're very ergonomic. It's very easy to set them up in a way so that you don't strain your shoulders and neck while playing. And as you can see here, I'm using a setup where I can both sit down and play on the lowest tier, and the third tier is actually perfect for standing up and playing, as well as tweaking the sounds, programming new sounds. A key benefit when it comes to the stand I have is the fact that I can move different tiers, not only up and down, but also in depth. This also makes it so that it's easier to get an ergonomic setup, and you could, for example, push one tier backwards in order not to obfuscate or get in the way of the lower tiers, for example. And you can, of course, move the tiers up and down as you please, depending on what kind of setup you want. And here you can see me locking a tier into place, and it's just one tool for every single piece that you want to fasten to the stand, basically. Now, the building of a Jaspers stand can be a little daunting, it can be a little annoying, but let me just guide you through the basic steps here. So basically we have these aluminum pipes, rods, not sure what the English word is, but basically used included guide and tools to fasten them together, and this part of the process wasn't very hard to do myself at all. But the next step is a little bit more tricky. This is where you fasten the holders, and this process is actually a lot easier if you have a friend, especially for larger pieces of gear. This is because it's hard to both hold a piece of gear so that the holders are nicely aligned and fasten holder at the same time. So one person holding the gear and one person doing the actual measuring and making sure that the holders are nicely aligned, and then that person makes sure to fasten the holder. But this is not a very complicated process. It's just better to be two people doing it. Trust me when I say that it will save you some headache. So to find the Jaspers, go to Tollman, type in Jaspers, and you'll get a huge list of items. The naming can be a little confusing. Basically, the first number is the number of tiers, and the second number is the width in centimeters. There are also different types of Jaspers stands. This is a more common type, it's angled, and a difference here when you compare it to the kind I got is that you cannot move the different tiers in depth, just up and down. This is the stand that I have, and as you can see on the bottom there's also a little rack unit. I don't have that particular rack unit, but it does seem very practical. And with this kind of stand what you get is a little bit more flexibility because you can move the different tiers back and forth in depth. There's also plenty of interesting accessories. So for example, this laptop stand that you can mount to the side of the unit. There's these additional holders that you can mount to the side of the unit. You can also mount speaker stands to the side of a rack, for example. And there's plenty of different sizes of holders as well, from smaller ones that fit, say, a Volca, to larger ones like this, which is 60 centimeters and can hold basically my large mixer if I want to. There's also a stand which fits groove boxes and drum machines, and I really want one in the future. It seems super practical. I think Heinbach actually has this particular model. You can also get stands with multiple reinforced tiers, so they can take synthesizers up to 40 kilos. And here you can see how the reinforcement works, so basically the holder is leaning against another rod. There's also an option of adding wheels to your stand if you want to roll it around the studio. And what kind of weight can the stand actually take? Well, the upper tiers that aren't reinforced can take up to 15 kilos, but you could also reinforce them. But when you reinforce them, you can't, of course, have something angled too much, because basically 2 rods has to take the weight. So the lower tiers that are reinforced can take up to 40 kilos. I also want to mention that I've asked around and looked around on how people are actually using their stands, and it seems that the holders can take more than 15 kilos even without reinforcement. For example, I've seen a couple of people putting the Matrix Brute on a stand even without reinforcement. The Matrix Brute is about 20 kilos. It seems sturdy, people seem happy with it, but of course that's not like the official recommendation, so take it with a grain of salt. Let me also mention a few negatives. On the actual holders, there are these rubber pads. They come off quite easily. Sometimes they stick to pieces of gear. It's not a major thing, but they don't get my seal of approval. The holders work really well for 95% of my synthesizers and gear, but for certain pieces of gear, like the Korg Prologue, for example, which has sort of an angled design, it can actually slide off. So I would never dare to put the Prologue in a steep angle on the stand. A second thing to consider is the actual size of these stands. They can feel pretty big in a small space, so make sure you buy one that fits your room. It should also be said that it can be quite annoying getting the holders to actually be perfectly aligned and for certain pieces of equipment not to wobble at all. Like, that's something you actually have to put in some time and effort into getting perfect. It's possible to get there, but it's largely dependent on you and the piece of gear that you're trying to put on the stand. So let me know in the comment section if this is a synth stand for you, or if you have some other suggestions of great keyboard and synth stands. Just drop them down below. So I hope to see you in a future video. Have a great day. Talk to you later.